Hello and welcome to episode 70 of Driver's Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. I've had a lot of havoc over the last few weeks. I've had two different visitors in addition to my family coming home by the time you hear this. I didn't really have any material to work with last week, so I sort of phoned in what I call a snow day episode, and I'm sorry. I'm going to do much better with that. Next time I'm going to put more thought into my snow day episodes. With that, let's get to the news and notes. Now, before we get to the racing news, like many of us, I watched the coronation of King Charles III last Saturday, and like a lot of Americans, I really wasn't 100% sure what was going on most of the time. Now, fortunately, there were online guides for helping dum-dums like me figure out what was going on most of the time. CNN, I think, handled the coverage very well, though I do think the four reporters talking over one another in the lead up to the King and Queen leaving Westminster Abbey wasn't great. But the best line, however, has to go to Christiane Amanpour, who pointed out that King Charles, and I'm quoting now, quote, looked more relaxed than he did at the beginning, end quote. Thank you for pointing out that he was more relaxed after the coronation than when it started. I would have never thought something that high of a stress level ending would relax somebody. Thank you. So we move on to the racing news. We've got two Hendrick Motorsports stories to start with this week. Now, for the second time this year, a Hendrick Motorsports driver is on the shelf due to outside activities. In this case, Alex Bowman injured himself during a sprint car race and, at the time of production, is out for at least 3 to 4 weeks. When asked about the incident, Hendrick Motorsports president and general manager Jeff Andrews stated, quote, I think that from that aspect, we always discuss with them and we have conversations. There's a process we have in place for when they do want to run racing events outside of the Cup Series. That's still in place. That was in place. For this race, we were very aware of Alex's schedule through the season for this sprint car. We look at Chase and Alex's situation as two different situations. This is the first extracurricular racing accident that we've had, and that's taken one of our drivers out of here for 3 weeks. Chase's situation was a snowboarding kind of recreational accident. We're always looking at it. I think our message is, be careful. It's difficult because that's something Alex has a passion for, something he's worked very hard to be better at, and we feel like it helps him over here in the Cup Series this year. He's obviously having the best year of his career in the Cup Series. This is a temporary setback, and we look for him to come back strong. We're always evaluating, we're always knowledgeable in the conversations with our drivers about what they're doing and where they're racing outside of the Cup Series. Obviously, it's a topic of conversation for us. We've had discussions with our guys about it since Alex's accident. We'll continue to have those talks as a group, and we'll make the best decisions, end quote. Okay, this is exactly why every other professional sports team has a line in their contracts stating athletes can't play their sport outside of team activities. This is exactly why, because injuries can and do happen. I'm sorry, but to Hendrick Motorsports, losing a top shelf driver because of a Busch League race is not a good look. I mean, I understand you're passionate about it, but when you have millions of dollars to lose in the Cup Series, why would you risk it? You've made it to the top of your chosen profession, and you're still running in Busch Leagues because you have a love of the love of the game, basically. What sense does that make? You risk shit like this, and now your championship chase is harder than it needs to be, and it's also look at the number of drivers who've had injuries that have ended their career in the Cup Series during a Cup Series race. Never mind a Busch League race that few people are going to remember outside of you being there. Good work, guy. Good work. Now, speaking of Hendrick Motorsports, our second story is that when Alex Bowman won in Las Vegas, for some reason, he wore a very comically oversized hat in Victory Lane. Well, apparently these hats are made by a company called Noggin Boss, which is based in Phoenix, Arizona. The average person can buy these hats with various designs on them. And depending on which one you buy, they can cost anywhere from $75 to $125 each. And they look just as stupid, as goofy as you think. This looks like something a clown would wear in a circus. It doesn't look good, it makes you look stupid. A normal hat costs about $45, these things cost $75 to $100. And why would anybody ever want to be seen in public wearing these? It's anyone's guess. Now, I've stated before that I hate modern merchandise almost across the board. But this is just awful, and it's a new low. Okay, so with that out of my system, let's talk Trackhouse Racing and Pitbull. Now, I've had a complaint for years about the various celebrity team owners in the past. Many of them were either racing part-time or they weren't fully committed as team owners. Now, in recent years, Trackhouse Racing and 2311 Racing have proven themselves to be exceptions because everybody involved is all in. And I like that. But Trackhouse is going a step further because it's clear that Pitbull is fully committed to racing. Pitbull, who has won Grammy, ALMA, Billboard Music, BMI, iHeartRadio, and Latin American Music Awards against others, will be naming his upcoming studio album Trackhouse after the NASCAR Cup Series team he co-owns. It's a bold move, but a welcome one. I like this. My complaints about celebrity owners in auto racing is that they're not fully committed. Pitbull is fully committed. I love it. I love it. So we're going to switch to Formula One. Some stuff from the Miami Grand Prix. First and foremost, the idea of the pageantry that was going on in Miami didn't sit well with a lot of drivers, but as others have pointed out, if you're going to play in our sandbox, you're going to play by our rules, and the pageantry is just going to be a part of it. You're going to have to get used to it. Second, Lewis Hamilton justifiably spoke out against Florida's arcane LGBTQ+ laws, which are almost in par with Saudi Arabia's, which is a fair point to make. He then doubled down and wore a special rainbow helmet in support of the LGBTQ+ community and then tried to convince Florida to overturn the new laws. It's controversial, but I like what he's doing. I think it's a smart move. I think the Florida laws are stupid. And a lesson here is to Miami and Florida. Miami needs Formula One more than Formula One needs Miami. I hope this action is taken, but it probably won't be. So, the other major story that came out from the Formula One race last week was McLaren was forced to make a livery change. Now, earlier this year, McLaren signed with a company called British American Tobacco as a sponsor to promote Velo vape products. Now, while this did lead to some eyebrows being raised, Velo is only a vape product, not a tobacco product, so there really isn't much that can be done in terms of legality. Well, due to American advertising laws, since this car is running in America, a bright white warning had to be added to the Velo logo, which added a very garish look. And it's like, well, again, our sandbox, our rules. Don't like our sandbox? Don't play in it then. That's just how it is. You don't like the American advertising rules? Tough shit. Now, our final Formula One story was announced that Puma is now an official supplier of Formula One races, granting the brand to produce, quote, F1 branded apparel, footwear, and accessories. Puma also gains the exclusive right to sell merchandise at races, and this deal does include what is known as, quote, replica teamwear, fanwear, and special edition collections for all 10 teams at fan retail stores at a number of F1 races throughout the season. Now, I'm going to go against the grain here because I've never been a fan of exclusive contract for merch. Competition does bring quality to the market. When you have two separate companies trying to outdo each other, the quality and the availability goes up. At the same time, one supplier streamlines the process for merch, which is really appealing to sports franchises. So I'm kind of interested to see how this plays out. And also, to be fair, Puma is a company that is known for their quality and is known for their is known for their racing dedication. So I think their stuff will be good. Now, with that, I'm going to take my break, and I'll be back to discuss a rabbit hole that I went down last week. Welcome back. Sometimes you go down an odd rabbit hole when somebody mentions something or you hear a story, and I've been through a couple of them this week. I'm going to start with one about Seattle first. So one of my coworkers took her family to Seattle for spring break, and we were just chatting in the break room, as you do, and she mentioned how she was talking about, oh, the Space Needle was fun, and the Evergreen State College has a very beautiful campus. I'm like, why do I remember the Evergreen State College? Because there's no reason I would have ever heard of this place. So I went home and I did a little research after work, and here's what I found. So I'm going to just talk about this college first. Quote, founded in 1967, it offers a traditional undergraduate curriculum in which students have the option to design their own study towards a degree or follow a predetermined path of study. Full-time students can enroll in interdisciplinary academic programs in addition to standalone classes. Programs typically offer students the opportunity to study several disciplines in a coordinated manner. Faculty write substantive narrative evaluations of students' work in place of issuing grades. Evergreen was one of the many alternative colleges and programs launched in the 1960s and 70s, often described as experiments. While the vast majority of these have either closed or adopted more mainstream approaches, Evergreen is pursuing its mission, although enrollment is declining. That was from Wikipedia. Now, there's a reason these alternative colleges failed, because they tried to change the system, but the system always wins, especially when it comes to education. Most of the people who want to change the system simply can't work within the current system, so the world needs to change inside of themselves. It's everyone else's fault except mine. It's a typical mindset that you have with younger kids, especially ones who grew up thinking that they're the greatest and that everything revolves around them. And the world sees right through it, and colleges like these are seen as a joke. Now, the reason I remember this was that there was a series of protests in 2017 which made national headlines and brought a lot of unneeded attention to this place. And I'm not going to say anything else other than I think everybody involved handled this badly. That's all I'm going to say. Now, again, they tried to change the system. The system wasn't going to change for a small college in Seattle. But if you need proof that this quote-unquote college has no real credibility as an institution, well, here's some proof. Evergreen State College is not open enrollment, yet they have a 99% acceptance rate. Now, 99% is the consensus, since I've seen some sources go as low as 94 and some as 99.5. Now, if this were an open enrollment community college, this wouldn't be too shocking. But this is supposed to be a legitimate college. Now, for all of the students who enroll, 99% of them get accepted. This removes any credibility the school may have because for a number of reasons. Number one, there is an argument that every student should be given the chance to go to college. My variation of this is that the students who could make the most of the opportunity should be given one. The A-plus student who doesn't have the financial means to go to college, absolutely give them the opportunity. sometimes people fail, that's just the way it works, but you give an opportunity to somebody who will make the most of it. The D minus student who spends more time in detention or the dean's office than in class should be given that chance. This is a school for liberals who literally have no other option. They don't want to work in a big box retail. They're not good enough to get into any other college, and they can't do the military. And it's clear there's no standards for admission. But the design your own way towards a degree thing, that's not a good look. Again, you're giving these students the very false impression that they can dictate their own ways to success. Above and beyond that, the fact that faculty write substantive narrative evaluations students in place of a grade takes even more credibility away, since the A through F standard has been in place for well over a century. It's the accepted standard. It's basically a college for students who can't handle standards, they can't work within the system, and it's not an impressive look for potential employers. But I was thinking about this, and I came up with I had an epiphany about this. So again, this school accepts 99% of all students who enroll. How bad of a screw-up do you have to be to get rejected from this place? I'm being serious when I ask that. How bad of a student or a person are you when you're in 1% of the students who have had applications rejected? I mean, this school is not for people who believe in standards. That's fairly obvious. Yet 1% of all applications end up in the reject pile. To put this in a bit more perspective, Harvard University, which no one can argue has real standards and is really picky about who they accept 5% of all applications. So if you think about it, it's 5 times as easy to get accepted into Harvard than it is to get rejected by the Evergreen State College. Just take a few seconds and let that register. I'll wait. Now this college is fading, but the school and those who attend can't understand why this college is slowly fading. Yet the fact that nobody outside of themselves could possibly take this school seriously, given the complete lack of standards or real direction the school has, should be obvious. Seriously, even some of the most liberal, against-the-grain, small liberal arts colleges still use the A through F system, yet a regional college thinks they have a better system than the generally accepted standard, and they wonder why enrollment is dropping and people aren't taking them seriously. Again, this is a school for students who don't have any other options. If you can go to a better school, you do so. If you are enrolled, you think it's a good school. If not, it's a joke. Those who work within the system can work within other systems. That in turn gives you credibility. Attempting to redesign the wheel will get you nowhere, and nobody will respect you in the end. The system isn't going to change to please a regional college in Washington State, so Evergreen State needs to adapt, since the rest of the world won't. And if you think the world should adapt for you, here's a wake-up call. It won't. Get used to it. With that, episode 70 comes to a close. I'm Dave Farsley. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for episode 71.